So thank you all for joining us. I hope you all had a good Easter season. Um, and tonight is Eid. In some Muslim communities, some are celebrating it tomorrow night. Passover's coming up soon. There's always something around the corner. Um, but I invited Norm Davis from the Madison Office of Civil Rights to join us. He gave a presentation to the Dane County NAACP Executive Committee a few months ago, and I learned all kinds of things that I didn't know were available to help people with civil rights questions or who had had their civil rights violated. And so I thought it would be a really helpful thing for you all to hear what's available. And I know not all of you are in Madison. Mr. Davis, Chris is in Watertown. Um, but I know that the office also is available to help people even if they're not quite in Madison and have resources and other ways to be helpful. So I am actually just going to turn it over to Norm Davis to share with you what his office has to offer.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, I really appreciate the invitation to speak to this group. So I've been with the city of Madison for, it's been 23 years that I've been with the city of Madison, always in some civil rights role. Actually, when I joined the city of Madison, there was not a Department of Civil Rights. The department was created in 2006. Former Mayor Chislevich brought the Affirmative Action Department and the Equal Opportunities Commission together under one roof, the Civil Rights Department. But even before I came to the city, I was engaged in work at the Wisconsin Department of Transportation in civil rights, one of their civil rights programs. So I've been in this work for about 25 years. And I'm still excited about this work and very excited about being able to do this work in Madison because I get to see the impact of our work. I'll say, oftentimes we hear about things like the Chicago shooting, of a Black motorist that was apparently fired at 91 times by police officers. And like that's the soundbite or the thing that we hear about in terms of civil rights. But much of what I have to share today is some of the policies and many of the proactive policies that we administer at the City of Madison Department of Civil Rights. So I want to help spread that message so that people know that we can be a source for them, a trusted source, and that we take our responsibilities seriously. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you want to be thinking about questions, if you have any questions right off the top that you want me to try to answer as I go along, I'm happy to take those now. You can flag me down. You might want to hit your unmute just in case I don't see your hand raised. Feel free to interrupt at any moment and I can answer your questions. So I'm gonna find my screen share here. Should be seeing my screen there with the PowerPoint. Right. Just 1 second so I can see you all. Alrighty. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the department, an overview, and who we are. Well, I'll try to illustrate the work as best I can because we do a whole lot of things and it's not always very intuitive to folks from the general public. We use this frame, access, education, and accountability. You'll hear me say those things throughout my talk here. And I'll talk about our brand, which is our Inspire model, and ways that we can collaborate beyond this presentation or this meeting. with you in your members or individuals in your community. So the first thing is down here at the bottom, I'll just highlight, if you draw a line right down here between these two gentlemen and over this way, everybody to the right-hand side is my immediate family. So you got my wife next to me there, our youngest, Jaya, out front, our oldest daughter just behind her, who lives in California, and my middle child, my son, who's just behind Karaya, my oldest there in the glasses. Everybody to the left-hand side is our family that lives in California. We've got family members that live out there that have just been a great support to Karaya on her journey. She grew up here in Madison, but she's chosen to live in and work in Los Angeles. So our department, we did some introspection when I became director about 8 years ago. And we decided, we really wanted to have a very strong brand. We wanted people to, as I said, know that we're here and that we take them seriously. And so we see ourselves as strong and compassionate leaders for justice. We've been gifted with some very solid policy. Even though the department is only 18 years old, our policies actually go back to precede the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Our Equal Opportunities Commission was created in 1963, and affirmative action about 10 years later. We lead with compassion. We know that when people come to us and bring their concerns to us, they're usually at the end of their rope. They're usually have endured harassment, discrimination, racism, other isms, and they're just looking for someone to take them seriously and help. So we lead with compassion, understanding that we're serving a population that is bringing trauma with them. And we want to be leaders. Oops, went too far there. Let me go back. Accidentally clicked that. We want to be leaders because we know government can be, people have trauma related to government, dealing with government. And we want to be able to make warm referrals. If we can't help someone, we want to put them hand in hand with one of our colleagues so that people aren't exhausting themselves just trying to find some help. And part of our leadership is that we believe in sharpening the saw, and so we invest in our own professional and personal development so that we can be at the forefront of civil rights expertise. Justice is great when you can get it. It's our North Star. But honestly, most days, we actually, are able to provide equity. But much of the time, we're actually here to just give people hope, so that they know that there's someone that's going to apply a fair process to their situation and deliver remedies when appropriate. So some of the history of the department is that, this is Reverend James Wright. He was the first Equal Opportunities Commission executive director. Some of the dates that I mentioned are listed here. And we got the benefit of our racial equity and social justice initiative going back to 2014. So we've been working in that space proactively for about 10 years. And a few years ago, Mayor Satya supported, and the council ultimately voted for us to create a new division, a third division of equity and social justice that currently houses our racial equity and social justice initiative, our neighborhood resource teams, which expedite services to underserved communities in Madison, our language access program, and our disability rights and services programs. For a long time, we were very reactive. Our focus in a lot of the strength of the work that we do is grounded in regulation and compliance. It's grounded in, people filing complaints and us following up with investigations. So we were always chasing after issues that were happening. And through the racial equity and social justice lens, we started to look further upstream and say, how can we impact what's happening before it gets downstream, before these problems start gathering at the bottom of the stream. And so we pivoted to a more proactive approach. And we've invested not only more of our time, but our resources, our staffing to more analysis and training, so that we work with every other agency in the city, so that we prevent ourselves from doing harm in the first place. So that when we're serving individuals in Madison or anyone that comes to the city for services, we're proactively looking to do that work equitably. And we also engage in consultations like this to let other communities and other community members know how we're doing our work and try to spread our influence. When I took over as director, I wanted us to raise our profile. I wanted more people to know about the work that we do. And I also wanted to what I called enlarge our footprint. I wanted to have more impact for the work that we do. This is an organizational chart, and I think one of the only things I want to say here is that I feel very blessed because having these kind of human resources for the work that we do in an organization is almost unheard of. We've got 24 staff members. I think this chart needs to be updated because we've added an additional investigator, but we have 24 positions. 4 of them are part-time, but we've got a lot of support from the mayor and common council for the work that we do. And, it's important because we do everything civil rights for the city. There's not another agency in the city that's doing civil rights thing. Our own internal recruitment, making sure that we have a balanced workforce, that we have, that we're making selections based on qualifications and not, other factors impacted by bias. We do all of the things civil rights for the city of Madison. And so not only do we have a great team within the department, but we also have boards, commissions, and committees that help us with this work. We have teams, neighborhood resource teams that help. They're made up of employees from across the city, across the 30 different city agencies that help us with this work. And we also have some affinity groups that we foster to help support employees based on the way that they identify. Oh, I think I started. Oh, didn't want to do that. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the slideshow. I clicked on the. All right, there we go. So this is what we call our Inspire model. So based on my background, I take a few different approaches. One is certainly civil rights focused. Another is organizationally, always interested in how the organization develops. I think if we can better tool the organization, that's only going to help our work be more impactful. And then the last take that I use is entrepreneurial. So I believe in not measuring inputs, not measuring outputs, but measuring outcomes. And so one of the things that we've identified is that if we don't do anything else, we have to provide access. It is our responsibility to break down barriers and make sure that regardless of how an individual identifies, regardless of any attributes of the individual, that they must have equitable access. And so, so that's our primary goal. And we do that through education. That's part of that analysis and the training, and then also accountability. You know, we've pivoted toward a more proactive approach, but we'll never be out of the business of checking. We're the ones who check the people who check. And so that work is critical, and we have to make sure that all the dots are connecting. So this is what we use to kind of create our North Star and also help others engage with us. And so anyone in the community that wants to lean into this work can pick any part of what you see here. You know, if you're especially good at, you know, any part of this, you can connect with us, and we can work with you. So being mindful of the time, I'm going to just talk about each one of our divisions a bit in this access, education, and accountability context. And I did it again. Let me go back to the presentation. There's too many hyperlinks here, I think. So in terms of access, you know, when it comes to affirmative action, there's a couple of different lanes that we use. One is the workplace. We work to create inclusive workplace environments. That's not only that's for the city of Madison itself, but it's also for our vendors. We require affirmative action plans from our non-exempt vendors, and we help them to create an inclusive workplace environment. So imagine we've got thousands of vendors that we use, that we work with every year. And that's part of that broadening our footprint. We've got vendors not only in Wisconsin, but across the country. And we often hear, you know, we're the only municipality that they've had to have this level of interaction with. But we're proud of that because we know that we're impacting the communities that are ultimately serving the city of Madison's contracts. And then we help provide economic opportunity and wealth building within the city of Madison. So we have programs to help grow small, minority, women-owned, disadvantaged businesses. We have internships that we run for the city of Madison and attempt to create some economic equity. We certify those businesses that may be, you know, as I said, small, minority, women-owned, or disadvantaged, and we also teach them how to do business with the city. We want to be accountable to our tax base, and that includes businesses that are run by diverse individuals. And so we don't want to continue to give the same dollars to the same folks that we have for the last 50 years, but we want to diversify our spend. So we work closely with our city attorney's office, finance department toward that goal. We set goals on projects. We monitor our contracts. You know, if we're building a library, police station, or even just fixing a road, we try to involve those businesses that historically have been shut out from our contracting opportunities. And as I said, we investigate claims of discrimination. So our Equal Opportunities division is largely outward facing. So we serve individuals in the community that have experienced harassment or discrimination, whether it's in their housing, whether it's in their employment, or even just public places of accommodation, restaurants, bars, you name it. It's even if it's privately owned, but it's a public space, our ordinance covers that facility. So we've worked to create what we call a government without walls, because we know if someone has to come downtown, they're challenged to find parking. They might have some trauma or experience coming into government buildings. Maybe they've had a not so good experience in the past. And so we've worked with community organizations to help facilitate the complaint process. We have all of our complaint forms online, and we're putting this process in the hands of individuals in the community that are trusted sources, so that individuals can talk to someone that knows them and interact with our office through community organization. I'm going to pass by that one. I always like to show this screen because for me, it's all about the tangibles. We have a part of our complaint process, our equal opportunities complaint process, where we try to bring the parties together to settle the complaint before it goes to hearing. And we do have a hearing examiner that will hear cases that go to hearing. But before it goes to hearing, we attempt to get the matter settled. And these are dollar amounts that have been awarded, and this is just settlements. This is not including those cases that went to hearing. But because individuals were harmed over the last 5-6 years, over $1 million has been paid out to individuals back in the community to help try and deliver that equity or that justice. This is just a screenshot of our online portal. So we've got an online portal available in 6 languages for individuals that have experienced discrimination or harassment. And we will provide the language access services to make the process as seamless as possible for anyone that's contacting us. Within our Equity and Social Justice Division, again, this is more of the proactive arm of our work. And so the charge there is simple. It's nobody's free until everybody's free. And so to actually, make the rubber meet the road there, again, we have our neighborhood resource teams, language access, racial equity and social justice, disability rights and services, which not only covers physical access, but also programmatic access for individuals in the community. I'd like to highlight a couple programs. We've partnered with the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation to run the Upstart program. Upstart has been running for the last 10 years. It's a free program for individuals of color and women in Dane County that either have started a business or want to start a business. It runs for 10 weeks and individuals get top-notch business coaching. And we've had over 500 graduates from the program that are, again, it's about the tangibles that are bringing in real dollars for their families and for our communities. The other program is we've been partnering with an organization out of Milwaukee for the last 3 years. This is the Associates in Commercial Real Estate program. And again, this is another free program targeting individuals of color that want to get into commercial real estate. This is a 6-month program, and again, they get top-notch training from individuals from the Milwaukee School of Engineering, Marquette University, and UW Milwaukee. And we've been slowly bringing that program to Madison. So there are seats for individuals from Madison, for each cohort, which this was an every other year program, but because of the city of Madison's investment, it's an every year program now. And we've been enlisting some support from former contractors in Madison, developers in Madison, and we're looking for educational partners in Madison as well. So I think I'll go past that one, and just being conscientious of time. I just want to mention that we're always open to collaboration. So, we want to certainly address any service gaps if they exist. We invite you or individuals that you serve, if they'd like to serve on any of our citywide teams. Again, we have 80 different boards, commissions, and committees within connected to our department. We have about 4 of those 80. And if there are residents of Madison that want to serve in that way, we have vacancies on those commissions as well. And we'd love to hear your thoughts as we work to refine, update, and improve our policies and processes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there. I think that's probably about 20 minutes, and see if there's any questions. Oh, you got to turn your mic on.
Mute. Yeah. Hi. My name is Mike Birch. I'm the executive director of a campus ministry called The Crossing at UW. We're right on the campus.
Great.
I'm fairly new here. But yeah, first I want to say thank you for taking the time to share the information that you did. It's all really helpful. And I've had some, a while back, I had an experience on a campus, so I was fairly engaged with an Office of Civil Rights. And so from what you're saying, it sounds like offices of civil rights can be different from state to state, number one. Not real surprising, but it was interesting to hear how yours is organized maybe versus others. But when I think of OCR, when I hear OCR, I think of the federal government Office of Civil Rights.
Right.
And I'm assuming this is what your office is, but you talked a lot about it being OCR in the city of Madison. Is there a difference, or are we talking about the same Office of Civil Rights?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So it's different. So at each level of government, there is some agency that works on civil rights. So at the federal level, there are multiple agencies at the federal level. There's the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. There's the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. There's the Department of Justice that has an Office of Civil Rights. So there's different players at the federal level. Then at the state level, it's pretty much the same thing. In Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin has some centralized civil rights services and some dispersed civil rights services. For example, my wife is the director of the Office of Business Equity at Wisconsin Department of Transportation. And so we actually do a lot of the same kind of work, but she does it for the state, and a lot of the state contracts is her realm. But it's those state dollars that she's tracking. And then at the county level, at Dane County, there's the Tamara D. Grigsby Office for Equity and Inclusion. So Wes Sparkman is the head of that department, and they do a lot of similar work that we do. But again, it's the jurisdiction is the county. But our area of jurisdiction is really the city of Madison proper. So when it comes to those equal opportunity complaints, we're bound by the geographic boundaries of the city of Madison. We can't take a complaint from Fitchburg, for example.
Right.
However, we actually have a contract with the federal government, with the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. So if someone lodges a complaint of discrimination against their employer, and it meets our protected classes and the federal protected classes, then we actually get contracted to do that investigation for the federal government. So we do work closely with different levels of government in the work that we do, but our authority extends only to the city of Madison or the dollars that we spend, like the contracting dollars that we spend.
So a likely situation might be, because it's the city of Madison and so many employees work for the university. So somebody has a civil rights complaint at the university, whether it's a student or an employee, and they could reasonably, and they feel it's especially egregious. They could go to the federal OCR, or they could come to you. Is that correct? They have the choice. And could there be a situation where, well, I should ask, what do you do when there is a situation when the federal OCR says, we don't think there's enough merit here, or we don't want to hassle with the university, and then the Madison OCR says this is very compelling. What's the real answer there in terms of who makes the call to the federal OCR and says we want to take this up, or how do you work out those conflicts?
Yeah, there's a technical answer. I'll do my best to represent that. One, if it's university, it's usually outside of our jurisdiction. State of Wisconsin, they could take their complaint to the state equal rights division, if it's an employment concern, under the Department of Workforce Development. If it's not employment related, then it would likely get taken up by the Department of Justice, in particular. If it's one of those cases where we have jurisdiction and the federal government has jurisdiction, the feds will usually defer to us to investigate. Sometimes we both have jurisdiction, but we have different protected classes. The city of Madison has the most protected classes in the country. We've got 30 protected classes. Gender identity, homelessness, religion or non-religion, physical appearance, you name it. There's 30 different protected classes. If the complaint has a protected class that applies to the city of Madison, but not to the federal government, then we'll take it alone ourselves. And sometimes we split it, where we'll issue a decision based on the federal standard and a separate decision based on the Madison standard.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions?
Typical kinds of situations that would come to your office.
You said, what are the typical kinds of situations?
Yeah, like what would constitute a civil rights violation that somebody would want to come to your office, as opposed to maybe just like going to the Equal Employment Office, or just suing an employer for bad business practices or bad employment practices, or going to the Department of Labor Relations. Like what would constitute a civil rights violation that would bring them to your office?
Yeah, so it's two things have to happen. So there has to be an adverse action. Something bad has to have happened. They got fired, they got denied an opportunity, they got demoted or penalized in some way from their employer, let's say, or maybe it's under housing. And they got evicted, or they were sexually harassed by their landlord. So there has to be an adverse action, and that adverse action has to be based on their protected class. And so in the investigation, we have to be able to link the two. That they didn't get fired because they threw paint on the boss's car, but they got fired because the boss used a racial slur, and they're a person of color, for example. And so those two things have to happen. And then I'm kind of blanking on the second part of your question, but we have to, once we investigate, we try to do it within a window of 90 to 120 days. The state and the federal government can really take up to a year, sometimes more. And so we try to be that leader in the community by honing our process, by expediting our process. And then we actually have two opportunities for the parties to mediate. One, the early one is called mediation. The latter one is called conciliation. And so that enables us to help the parties to get to resolution faster without going through a long, drawn-out hearing process. And so I think that's what makes our process a little more appealing to individuals in Madison. We always let them know, you've got a right to go to the Equal Rights Division, or you've got a right to go to the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission if you want to. But we try to serve folks locally and make that experience a good one for people.
So then, Norm, do you contract with, for instance, alternative dispute resolution firms or anything like that? Is that how some of that gets done? Because it's probably too much for you guys to do all the mediation yourself.
We actually do.
You do it all in-house?
Yep.
Okay.
We have So we have 2 staff members who are certified in mediation. One is our Equal Opportunities Division Manager, Byron Bishop, and the other is Rebecca Bilo. She is our paralegal mediator. And so we've got 2 full-time positions on staff that do those mediations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah. Yep. Very busy. We're booked out a couple months usually for mediation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to employment complaints, would it be your office that somebody would turn to if, say, they were a high school student who felt that they had been unfairly targeted for disciplinary action based on their race or minority religion status, or a teacher had said something in class that they felt was racist or in some way biased against them? Is that something that somebody would come to your office with?
Individuals have, but unfortunately, that's outside of our jurisdiction. The Madison School District is a separate entity from the city. And I think someone mentioned that, this is done a lot of different ways across the country. And, sometimes the school district is part of the municipality, but in Madison, we're separate. And we don't have jurisdiction over the school district. So, but we do know the individuals at the school district for them to seek help from. And so we try to maintain contact, as I said, so that we can give those warm referrals, and individuals can pursue their complaint with the right authority.
Thank you. That's interesting. I did not know that. That's a strange division.
Yeah.
But that's good to know. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
So we have a lot of people that are across lines. In other words, I'm in Verona. My church is in Verona. I live in the city of Madison, and we have members that are Middleton, Madison, Verona, Fitchburg, and go across those lines. Are we talking about only if the discrimination event happens outside the city of Madison, you don't handle it? Or if the person is a resident of the city of Madison and something happens to them in Middleton, how does that get handled?
Yeah, it's the former. So as long as it happens in Madison, doesn't matter if you're from California or Hawaii, we have jurisdiction. And it's interesting because sometimes we've had cases where, let's say someone works for an employer that's in Minnesota, but they're working remotely, or they're working short term in Madison. And so our policies still apply in that instance. And so, it's on the equal opportunity side, it's the geographic boundaries of Madison. And, there's also a time element. They have to report it to us within 300 days for us to have jurisdiction. But that's another reason why we've been working with communities like Sun Prairie and other neighboring communities, because they've talked to us about how we've organized our programs, and they've decided to create similar programs. So just like you said, if I live in Madison, I'm in Verona all the time. I'm in Middleton all the time. So those boundaries don't mean that there's less protection for people. If we can help our neighboring jurisdictions see the value of enacting similar policies.
Other questions? Thank you so much for being here and excuse me, taking the time to share this with us. It's really important information for us all to know that these resources are available, and we really appreciate your taking the time to be with us and share it with us.
Great.
And thank you for letting me record so we can send it out to the rest of our group.
Of course, of course. It's my pleasure. I really like having these opportunities to share, collaborate, to meet new people. And, if there's anything that I can better highlight, better explain, or if there's opportunities to collaborate in the future, I look forward to that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know if y'all are gonna keep meeting. Should I go ahead and hop off then?
Yeah, I had a couple of new programs coming up that I wanted to let folks know about. So I just have a couple of announcements, and then if you all have things that you all want to share with each other, it's always good to hear what you're all doing. So we've been working for almost a year now. It's been a year. With a group of African American and Jewish teens, and they created a 5-episode podcast. It's called The Talk. We finally, after a long time, got all the episodes up on YouTube, and they are now live and public. And I just uploaded them to a podcast platform, and so hopefully by the end of the day today, I will figure out how to get them onto Spotify and Apple Tunes, but they are now up on the podcast platform, which is called Podbean. But you can find the 5 episodes. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So they're on our YouTube channel. It's a playlist called The Talk. And putting the link in the chat to the playlist. Please share widely. And we are going to have kind of a launch party and media event on May 5th at Temple Bethel at 2:30. So we'll be having publicity out soon to invite people to come. And some of the kids who were part of the podcast are going to be there, and they're going to talk about their experience and what it was like and why they were interested in being part of the project, what they learned from it, and what they enjoyed about it. It's an amazing group of kids. They're so smart, so engaged. They really enjoyed getting to know each other. And the episodes are just it's just really fascinating watching the kids and listening to them talking to each other and hearing what they care about and what's important to them in their lives, and what it's like to be African American or Jewish, or at least in one instance, both African American and Jewish, and growing up in Wisconsin, which is largely white and Christian. So do watch and do share with your congregations, and come to the launch party and meet some of the kids. We're hoping to do a second round in the fall, kind of season 2, if you will. And some of the same kids are going to stay on, and we're also going to recruit some new kids. So we're really excited that this is finally all coming together. And the other thing I wanted to mention, we have our annual celebration coming up. It's going to be June 10th at 7 o'clock at First United Methodist Church. It'll be both in person and virtual. So we're back in person for the first time since the pandemic, so we're excited about that. And our keynote speaker is Rachel Laser. She is the president and CEO of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. And so she's going to be talking about the work that AU does. And I don't know if you all have been watching what's been happening in Texas. There was a law that passed in Texas in the last legislative session that calls for schools to replace their school counselors with chaplains, with clergy. So schools are now in the process of deciding whether or not to take up this opportunity that this law affords them to replace their licensed and trained school guidance counselors and social workers with untrained, unlicensed clergy who will have the opportunity to meet with students without parents' knowledge or permission, and will be able to proselytize and use their position to promote their own particular faith to the students. There are similar laws that are being proposed around the country, and if it hasn't come to the Wisconsin legislature yet, it I'm absolutely positive that it will. So she's going to talk about their work to oppose that legislation and some of the other work that they've been doing around the country, around book banning, around discrimination against LGBTQ students in our schools, and some of the other work that they do. We're also going to give our Voice for Justice Award to Sherry Tussler, who is retiring as the head of the Hunger Task Force, and to Milwaukee's District Attorney John Chisholm, who also is retiring. This is our annual fundraiser, so there is a charge to purchase tickets, whether you're coming in person or online. We're going to be serving dessert from Just Bakery and savory snacks from some of the refugee and asylum seekers entrepreneurs in Madison who are starting their own restaurants or catering businesses, and we want to really highlight their businesses and give people an opportunity to taste their food. So it should be a really fun evening. Ben Weger, who did some of the music at our Pride and Transgender Day of Remembrance service, is going to be playing with his band. So we'll have some live music. And a chance for us to share our accomplishments from the past year and what we're hoping to do in the year to come. So it should be a great evening, and we're really looking forward to it and looking forward to being in person again. And I put the link in the chat to the page on our website where you can read more and you can share it and purchase tickets. We're also going to be sending out information to you all about sponsorships and the opportunity to buy ads in our program book. So that's some of the things that we're working on. Of course, there's always other stuff. We have our Interfaith Intersections event next tomorrow night, actually, at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church on Raymond Road. And the topic tomorrow night is fasting and self-denial, because it's the end of Ramadan and just past Lent. And so we thought that that would be a good topic for our Interfaith Intersections. We have Jewish, Christian, and Baha'i panelists this time around. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing. Of course, our Wisconsin Faith Voter Engagement Campaign, gearing up for 2024 elections. We're going to have some webinars in May, and we're going to do a launch in June, so stay tuned for more information about that. And just want to see what questions you all have, and if you have things that you're doing in your congregations or ministries and things that you want to share. How was your Easter? What are you looking forward to coming up? Chris, you
I'll
all have a
share.
meeting coming up in Watertown with the groups that you're organizing around equity.
There is. We're meeting again this coming. When I say we, I mean not just the clergy, but the groups who have been participating of members of the churches, and we're actually hoping to identify specific issue areas to tackle. You know, the winnable issues, identifying 3 or 4 different projects in a 3 to 6 month time frame. So we're at the point where it's actually pretty exciting. At the same time, it's overwhelming. I think we have some good starters. The other 3 clergy and I met yesterday to talk about that, and we came up with some ideas of specific projects, but we don't want to dictate to the larger group what these projects should be. So we just kind of brainstormed a few things to help get the conversation started. We've been working with Wisdom and David Liners, especially with this process. And I think, a couple of the ideas deal with Pride in the Park, which, for those of you who don't know, was the event that neo-Nazi demonstrators showed up at last year, armed, and it was really kind of the initial driving force behind this group getting together. So it's going to be an exciting time. So we're looking forward to it, but we don't know what's next yet.
That's great. Thank you for doing all that organizing.
Bonnie, we have, Moses has that traveling exhibit of the solitary confinement cell, which you're probably aware of. So
Yep.
we're doing a month of incarceration reform at the crossing. So the cell is set up on the first floor for students to, anyone, actually community people, anyone can come through and look at the replica of solitary confinement. And we're coinciding it with, you know, we're going to support the event and have a meal, a post-event meal for the Unlock the Box, which is April 23rd at the Capitol. So all that stuff's going together in April.
That's great.
May I ask, do you have a communication? I mean, I'd like to get any flyers, or if you have links or something like that that I could share to our audiences, that'd be great, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I will send you all kinds of stuff. That would be
All
great.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, anything you want to share from Sugar River?
No, just a busy spring and interesting times and lots going on. So we just did an event called The Singular They, which was kind of a sexuality education event, specifically around gender identity and expression. And that was the first thing we've done like that at our church. And it was very well received and people thought it was great. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
That reminds me, so I'm going to send out, after this meeting, I'll send out the link to the recording. And I'll send out a doodle poll for our May meeting. And in May, we are also going to have a speaker, and it's Leah Rolando from, oh God, now I can't remember the name of her organization. Shared Connections. I'll look it up. But she's going to talk about the work that they're doing around trauma and suicide, and working with particularly with LGBTQ youth. And she does some, as part of her work, she works with congregations to talk about the role that the faith community can play, the ways that faith communities have been have enacted harm, particularly with the LGBTQ community, and ways that the faith community can be a support and good allies. And so it should be a great conversation. She's wonderful, and I think that you all will both enjoy getting to know her and also learn a lot from her, and hear about some of the programming that she's been doing with some congregations, and that she could bring to your congregations. So look out for all those links, and thank you all so much for taking the time to be here today, and I really appreciate it. And I will, as always, be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.